Hey everyone, welcome to my Optimum Health God's Way YouTube channel. Today we are going to look at stewardship and our overall health. Before we look at that, let's look at ownership versus stewardship. First, when we think of ownership, when you own something, you have the right to do with it as you please, as long as you don't use it to commit a crime. However, when you are a steward or manager of someone else's property, you must take care of it according to the owner's direction and instruction. Because a steward is but a trusted administration or man over the house or business responsible for managing someone else's assets or properties. Biblically, we are God's stewards to manage God's resources like time, talents, treasures, our body, our health on His behalf. For we don't own these resources, but are responsible for using them faithfully to glorify God. For example, when we look at the Bible, Joseph was being sold as a slave. So when Potiphar, his slave master, bought him, he became a steward or servant in managing Potiphar's household. In 1 Peter 4 verse 10, believers like us are stewards of God's grace. Society today has the attitude that we can do whatever we want as long as no one gets hurt. Or sometimes they don't even care if someone gets hurt. The feeling of I am free to do whatever I want to do, like free to eat, free to drink, whatever we want, live whatever lifestyle. A result of such an attitude has led much heartache, difficulty in the areas of moral behaviors, health, family breakdown, crimes, accidents, chaos, and the list could go on. Everyone seems to want to be a law unto themselves. Reminds us of God's people in the book of Judges, in Judges 17:6. Everyone did that what was right in his own eyes, forgetting that we are stewards. Rather, we have a mindset that of ownership. The Bible teaches that God owns us. Firstly, in Genesis 1, when you read it, God created us. So we are God's creation. Secondly, He redeemed us. In 1 Corinthians 6:20, we are bought with a price. His own Son sacrificed, paying ultimate price to redeem us from his enemy, Satan. Therefore, we belong to God through creation and redemption. As owner, God has the right to instruct us in our lifestyle and activities. Like parents raise their children the way they want or the way they think is best for their children. For example, my parents raised us vegetarian because they thought that was the best for us. God has instructions for His children, that is us, believers, in every important area of our lives. In the Bible, what to eat, how we dress, our entertainments, how we use our time, money, talent. That is to use for God's glory. Like in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31, whether we eat or drink or whatever we do, to do all to the glory of God. In 1 Corinthians 7 verse 22 and 23, since we are bought with a price, we are to be His servants. During the slavery days, the slave masters would go and buy the slaves, and the slaves had to obey the masters. So since God bought us with a price by sending His Son to die for us, we are His stewards or servants, even though God will never treat us like servants, but we are to obey God. As God's stewards, we are to obey God in all of His ways. Thus, we must consider ourselves as stewards of God, not owners of ourselves. That means we can't do and we shouldn't do whatever pleases us. In 1 Corinthians 4 verse 2, it is required of stewards to be faithful to God in all responsibilities. Therefore, we Christians should seriously take the instruction instructions that God has given us concerning how to take care of our bodies that He has given us. For example, we are considered good and faithful stewards whenever we follow God's health principles. They are godly trust, open fresh air, daily exercise, sunshine, proper rest, lots of water, always temperate, and nutrition. In another word, we are unfaithful stewards when we disobey or disregard God's health principles. And in most cases, whether we are faithful or unfaithful stewards of God, it will show in our health. If we are sickly, most probably because we don't take care of our health according to God's health principles. But if we are being faithful stewards for the most part, it is said that some people would brag that their doctor's checkups results show that everything in their body was fine, although they didn't take care of their body by following God's health principles. But when you look at them carefully, they are taking high blood pressure medication or diabetic medication or other medications. That means something is still wrong, even though the doctor's checkup would show that everything was fine. Whereas some people would give an excuse that they were already sick and in pain, so they would keep doing the same thing. In Matthew 25:23, when we look at Jesus's parable about the talents that God has given us and the use we make of them, we can see that to the ones that use their talents according to the master's instructions, their master would say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," or stewards. But to the one who didn't follow master's instructions, the master said, "You wicked and slothful servant or steward." Here we can see that everything we have or given by God, such as money, time, talent, ability, our bodies, our health, or any other gifts, is considered a talent. So we have choices to make, whether we want to be good and faithful servants or stewards, or unfaithful and wicked ones. The Bible is clear. As God's stewards or servants, we are to take seriously of what God has to say about the laws of our beings. And as His stewards, we are to do our best to attain our physical, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being, which are an essential part of being a faithful steward of God, to glorify Him, to be used for His glory, and to be ready for Christ's return. So as Christians and stewards of God, our goal is to serve God with an eye single or focus to His glory, and to hear the Master say, "Well done, you good and faithful steward. Enter into the kingdom of heaven." May God help each one of us to be a good and faithful steward who recognizes that God owns everything, our time, talents, resources, body, and acts as His faithful steward, using everything given to us to glorify Him, to serve others, to advance His kingdom through obedience. Wisely manage resources responsibly, caring for people for God's purposes, seeking to multiply our resources and talents for a greater purpose. Friends, I would like to leave you with 3 John 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health as your soul prospers. Bye for now. God bless.